The big one I've seen is a lot of companies being started around the sustainable consumer, which is very broad, but then there are a few different legs of that I've seen quite a bit of focus on. One is around food waste, so companies that are doing a version of like the ugly produce box, or finding new ways of upcycling food waste into products that are more desirable. So the little banana bites you might have seen at the airport, for example, or beet chips, like that. And then I've also seen a lot of circular economy models on the retail and clothing side and packaging side. So it's been really interesting to see companies, both incumbents and new entrants, innovating to keep up with consumer demand for more sustainable products.
I think, my one observation with a question like this one is, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And our strategy is very focused on behavioral change. That's really what we've built our climate investment thesis and sustainability investment thesis around. So surprise, we see a lot of companies that are built around the concept of behavioral change. So certainly in the food space, we see a lot of things associated with consumer behavioral change, as Monica just mentioned. In the B2B space, we see companies that are selling solutions or products that help enterprises make their decisions very differently around whether it's procuring products, their own products, or or logistics or travel. So we see the behavioral change theme both for consumers and in B2B, and that plays to our very fundamental belief that I think the change we all seek lies in behavioral change. And the reason I emphasize that is I think a lot of climate-related entrepreneurial work is around scientific and more rationalist and instrumental changes, extracting carbon from the atmosphere, for example. Our focus is really on behavioral change, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more as we go along.
Great. And the next one is, what types of companies and founding teams do you notice do particularly well? And related to that, what is one company in your portfolio that you're most excited or optimistic about?
I like all my children.
Pick your favorite child right now.
I have twin boys, and I told them earlier this week that neither of them was my favorite. So that had no effect, by the way. Rather than describe one company as a favorite, because I mean it. We love all our children. I just highlight our most recent investment and maybe talk about what made that interesting for us. This is, you guys, I put it in one of the Slack channels in MCJ, and this is Clarity. It's an air pollution business, air pollution sensor and measurement platform business. There are a number of interesting companies in that area, not just Clarity. And this space will have multiple winners. And I think the things we liked, we're very global in how we think. My partner is in Singapore, and so right there you see that element. And so the global nature of the problem and the global nature of Clarity's solution was super interesting, super exciting, and relates to our view that you can't solve climate in a localized way. You have to think about global solutions. So we love that. It was a step outside the norm for us, and that's the only other point I'll make, in that it is a full stack solution. So there is hardware in the stack, and that was relatively new to us. We have not done a whole bunch of investing in the Internet of Things area. We're a very software-centric investor, but this was a space where we got comfortable with the importance of a full stack solution. So that was motivational. And then the third piece, which begins to answer the first question, is our portfolio is bifurcated in terms of management teams. We have a set where you have serial entrepreneurs who are on their second or third or fourth go around, and you have a set where you have younger founders who typically are first time. And our pattern recognition has concluded that we like them both. So we don't skew in one direction or the other. Mostly we're trying to figure out if we can live with each other for the next 10 years. And so that I spend a lot of my time thinking about that. And hopefully my founders spend a lot of time thinking about whether they want to spend the next 10 years with me.
In terms of some of the themes that make companies successful in the space, one thing we've observed and definitely select for is I think there can be a fallacy of companies that create products that they believe are differentiated because they are sustainable, and that's necessary but not sufficient for us. So it's really important for us to find teams that are building something that's truly differentiated and not trying to sell into a commodity market. And so many companies in sustainability, unfortunately, can fall into this trap. So if you're making a more sustainable ingredient, for example, that goes into a food product, you need to create that end demand for that specific ingredient, which can be challenging. If you're creating green electrons, unfortunately, the way the market works today, that you get paid the same amount for the green electron versus an electron from a coal plant. There's more nuance to that depending on what time of day it's created, et cetera. But the overall point being, we really look for teams that are creating something that's better and sustainable, not just green. And some of our companies that are doing this well, so one is Arcadia. They're based in DC, and what they do is they help consumers pull together all their energy and utility bills in one place and manage it, so they can transition to green sources of energy. They can actually save money and lower costs and reduce the volatility in their energy bills. And rather than getting billed from 3 different places for 3 different utilities, they're able to pull that into one place. And so there's both an argument to be made for the consumer from an ease of use and functionality perspective, and from a sustainability perspective. And then in a very different way, we have a company called ShareTex that's making unbreakable pantyhose for women. And so it's like, it doesn't tear in your hands. It's made of like green ultramolecular weight polyethylene. And so it's like highly functional, because women who wear tights, sheer tights, know that they tear all the time and it's extremely annoying. But then it's also, reducing the amount of textile waste we have in the world and creating like high performance sustainable materials. So we always look for both of those things, because I think it can be a fallacy in this space to think that if you make a commodity green, people will automatically pay a premium just for that.
I really like that point, Monica. Yeah, and building on that, we look at especially companies that their business model and their impact model are intrinsically linked. And so if the business is growing and do better financially, that means the impact has to be growing as well. So that's something really important in the types of companies we're looking at. And in terms of founders, Techstars has invested in almost 2,000 startup companies now. And our investment thesis, the first 3 parts of it are team, team, team. And so I think the question about the founding teams is really an important one, especially as we're looking at really early stage companies sometimes. And so a few things we look at with founding teams is, one, kind of, do the skills of the team match the company? So if you're building a software product, do you have a technical person on your team, for example? Also, a high level of discipline. One thing we teach a lot at Techstars is around OKRs and KPIs and kind of different goal setting and metrics. And we do find that folks that can be disciplined around learning, essentially, can iterate quickly and kind of get to the right business model, get to the right customer product fit, and help them be successful in the long run. And then I think another thing that especially our program really looks at is, I guess, the heart and the I'll say consciousness. I'm in Boulder, I can use terms like that, of the folks. And just really, we like to say, great companies are built from the inside out. And there's a lot of personality dynamics and communication dynamics and kind of, as you alluded to, long-term relationships with folks that you invest in. And so, people open to feedback, willing to be mentored, ask for help, people that are, going to lean in and take advantage of all the resources like folks in this community right here to help them on the way, I think really is tied to helping the success of companies.
Great. Thank you, guys. That was really interesting to hear. The next one is, what ideas and spaces are you the most excited about in the upcoming years?
Food is the short answer, which obviously is huge. And we've all seen the math and the analysis on food waste in particular, and alternative meats. But I think it goes far, far beyond that. Just the complexity of the food ecosystem, now inflected with beginning to think about the effect of this pandemic and future ones, and it's just going to be exploding with opportunity is our view. On one occasion last year, we wondered if we should just make our new fund all about food. And I see that on the consumer side, I see that on the B2B side, I see that in logistics, I see that across the spectrum. So super excited about that. We've made one investment in the food space. It's a food surplus marketplace in Southeast Asia, which is the other geography we invest in. And I'm hopeful that we'll find multiple things to do here in the US over the next 2 years.
The theme I'm really excited about is supply chain management. So it's there's so many levels of this. Like, consumers want to know more about how their products were made, where they came from, for environmental and social reasons and consciousness reasons. And then in the case of food, for consumer health and personal health reasons. But yet for a large retailer, say Walmart or Target, they might know where the first layer of their products are supplied from, but they don't really know what that second layer of supply looks like. And so both from a sustainability perspective and social consciousness perspective, and from a risk perspective, because to Ramanan's point, right now with coronavirus and supply chains getting disrupted, for food, for consumer goods all over the world, there are many first and second order disruptions happening that are going to cost businesses and consumers a lot of money and economic damage in the near term. I think that tools that help companies visualize their supply chain, track risk across them, and manage their supply chain more effectively will have a real tailwind behind them coming out of this crisis. So that's a theme I've been looking at. Another one is around carbon tracking, carbon accounting. I think increasingly there's been much more of a focus on ESG, and investors and consumers care about the sustainability credentials of companies, but there is no standard way on the ESG side, is at least, of like thinking about what that means and how to measure it and how to track it and quantify it. And so I've been looking at tools and options for companies to do that in a more automated and less services intensive way.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, because of the partnership with the Nature Conservancy, which, if you're not familiar, it's the world's largest environmental nonprofit, we're super focused on natural resources. And so I'm really excited about tools that help us increase our understanding of our ecosystem services, and tools that help people managing those services, so managing forests and timber or aquaculture, fisheries, help them do their job better, and also help them influence decision makers, whether it's on the policy side or business leaders. Anything that helps us better understand our planetary health and what's going on, so then we can make decisions on that is really interesting to us. Food, as I mentioned, is also interesting to us. Kind of anything to do with soil, land, water, and then also kind of how to bring natural resources to solve climate change, especially into cities. We'll find that a little bit with stormwater and things like this, but super curious, how do we improve air quality and urban heat and these kind of things in cities?
Great. The next question is, what would your advice be for people that don't have technical skills or a hard sciences background when navigating the climate tech industry?
I think one is just bringing in lateral thinking. I think like that can be a really interesting advantage, like bring in ideas from fintech and from other sectors and into this big thorny problem. And I think bringing in new ways of thinking and new diversity of backgrounds and education can only hopefully generate more creative solutions. And so I think being curious about what other models that have been successful in tackling other problems could be applied here would be helpful. I think another one is also considering whether in all cases traditional VC is the right model for every business. There's project finance, there's infrastructure finance, there are grants, there are just so many different models. And as a VC investor, I do have a horse in this game, but I don't think that it's the right model for every single clean tech business. And I think Clean Tech 1.0 taught us that. And so I think just considering that angle as well before you embark on that journey is important.
Yeah, definitely plus one that. I think there can be a glorification of raising money in this venture capital route, and asking yourself if it's right for you and your company first is step number one. So thanks for mentioning that, Monica. And the lateral. I think everyone has different skills, and they're all needed in the climate change work that we're doing together. And so just because you don't have a technical or, I don't have a technical or scientific background really, even though I work for a Techstars. So finding different unique ways to just like figure out what are you good at, what keeps you going. It's a lot, we have a big hill to climb together. And so I think focusing on what's going to help you keep going every day and working on that is a really valuable way to look at it.
I would add, I think this question is from Shanu Matthew. I think the logic behind how do I participate in a space when I don't have technical skills, or in this case, scientific skills as well, I think that is a very pervasive issue. It is specific to climate tech. There's no shortage of folks who work in financial services or consulting who've seen the light and want to move over to the tech universe. And I think the typical pathways are well established. You're going to take a step down in a number of respects because you're changing your career path and trajectory. And you're going to end up accepting something that looks closer to, I don't want to say entry level, but you're restarting. So historically, a lot of ex-consultants, for example, end up in quote biz ops as their first step into the startup universe. And I think all of that, I'm giving that as a small example, but all of that logic applies to companies in the climate and sustainability spaces.
I also want to add just the power of network and folks around you. And so leaning on, community, and this community can be really helpful in terms of maybe it's finding a co-founder that does have the technical skills you need, and someone, I've seen a lot of people that come from this tech background and are like, I want to get in climate change, but all I know how to do is, something technical, for example. And so really kind of trying to collaborate more and see where that gets you to.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
I've written on this, and I think every investor on this call will appreciate this remark. There's a global fetishization of entrepreneurship, and investors like myself contribute to it. And so I think if you're thinking about founding a company, I think you want to think really hard about that decision, because it'll have ripple effects for the rest of your life, right? And so I think if you're because this question sort of has two parts. One, joining an existing business, which I commented on earlier, or starting a new one. Think long and hard before starting a new one. We celebrate founding companies a bit too much, not just in America, but elsewhere. And as we all know, the failure rate is very high. So I think you want to think about that.
Okay. I'm going to keep us moving because we're running close to needing to switch to breakout rooms. The last question I'm going to pull from, and then I'm going to switch over to Chris for some Q&A from the audience, is what are the best resources, books, websites, research papers, newsletters to follow to stay on top of the latest climate tech? What and who are your favorite organizations or people to follow?
I really like Green Tech Media, both their website and online media presence, but then also a bunch of podcasts that they do, the Interchange and Energy Gang. That's been a consistent source that I've followed. Obviously, My Climate Journey has done a really great job of pulling together really interesting and diverse perspectives, both sector-wise and functionally. So I think it's been a really interesting community. I'll pause there. I'll think about it.
Yeah, those are great. Another one I love that just came out is The Breeze, and that's really around climate tech investing. Project Drawdown obviously has amazing resources. Nori, one of our portfolio companies, has 2 podcasts, Reversing Climate Change and The Carbon Newsroom, and some good blogs as well. So I follow them in addition, of course, to My Climate Journey.
I think for me, because we have this behavioral change lens on climate and sustainability investing, which as a result means we look at a lot of things with a climate and sustainability lens that don't necessarily have climate on the t-shirt. I've been pretty moderated in the information sources I look at, and number one on the list for me is My Climate Journey. I'm sort of viewing it as the main place, and hence also the level of engagement. In my nonprofit life, I've been looking and evaluating for the last 18 months where I want to spend time and resources. And I think, again, you've seen in MCJ, you've seen where that is now pointed at the Natural Capital Project at Stanford, which any of you can ping me about separately. I've done a lot of reading, and I'll extract a book list and from one of my blog posts and put it in MCJ.
Great. And Chris, I'm going to pass off to you. If you want to do 2 questions from the community, that would be perfect. Oh, you're muted. I got you. Can you unmute yourself?
You're sounding great, Chris.
There we go.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so first of all, thanks everyone for submitting. We got a lot of really good questions here. Maybe we can try to answer some after the session. Let's see here. So I wanted to get this one from Shanu up, which is what are the biggest misconceptions about working in climate tech? What are some frustrating aspects of your jobs, he asked, and what do you wish you would have known before joining?
I think for me, it's the perception that it's necessarily impact investing, and unfortunately, impact investing can often have the connotation that you're not doing it for the same financial returns. And I think that to me is a damaging perception because it restricts the investor base and the types of capital that are interested in investing in these companies because they assume it means it's philanthropic capital and you won't get your money back, et cetera. And it seems to imply that climate tech businesses are inferior, less productive from a business perspective, a profitability perspective, as compared to other businesses. And for me, I find that to be a damaging perception because obviously, like, there are counterexamples like Tesla that have made a lot of people wealthy and done a lot of good in the world, and I want to build more companies like that. And so to me, that's the perception I try to fight most against.
Thanks. Anna or Ramanan?
Good.
I think some of the things that are frustrating me sometimes are, I guess, lack of understanding of some of these markets. So I'll have investors in our network that will just be like, why would you take this company? They sell to municipalities or they sell to governments, and that's really hard. And I'll just be like, right. And like some of the impact that we need to make in the world is really hard. And I think a lot of big problems mean big opportunities. And so I think it is a hard, I'm not going to say like, yeah, it's easy and nobody knows that it's actually easy. It is hard to do, but it's really important for some of the work that we need to do. And so I do think there can be, as someone who I am personally very driven by the impact, and sometimes I think some of our current structures, traditional models might not be set up in the best way to create the largest amount of impact. And so I think that's a natural tension that makes sense, and I think we'll kind of adjust over time. But sometimes I have frustrations personally around wanting things to move a little quicker and more support to our climate. Starting a company is hard no matter what, really hard. And sometimes it can be an extra layer in some of these kind of certain markets that we need to solve our challenges for.
I have all the same frustrations that I've had in every other sector I've invested in, so nothing idiosyncratic.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing all of that. And then I have a question here from David McCall that is, outside of capital, what resources do your portfolio companies need most?
I mean, it's people, isn't it? It's all about people. For every function now becomes that much harder in the era of the pandemic. And I think it's going to force many companies, most companies actually, to rethink how they construct their teams, where they are, how they collaborate, how they sell. All of that tidal wave of behavioral change, so to speak, is coming. So I think finding great team members at every level, whether you're a 10-person company or a 1,000-person company, has always been a challenge. And I think it's going to be even more challenging in the next year. And in that respect, I think this is going to be a very interesting role for MCJ, right? Because as it begins to get people together, I think there'll be more people looking for roles. And I think the talent base that I'm alluding to, there's a complexity here, and I just want to mention it briefly, which is there is obviously a huge cohort of people in development, sales, marketing, product, pick the function, who proactively want to be in climate-related spaces. It's actually the substantially larger group of people who haven't really been thinking about it that I would like to get to, right, as a VC and as a board member. And I think that's going to be one of our challenges in advising our companies and pushing and prodding them.
Yeah, talent, and then adding to that, introduction to customers. I think always, if it's earlier stage, kind of someone who will be that first customer or pilot partnership, or later stage, who can they talk to that will help them sign more deals.
I'd echo those points. I don't think I have anything to add beyond that. Talent and people are definitely the biggest ones.
Great. Well, I think we are going to transition into our breakout rooms. They're going to be a little bit shorter since we went over, but I'm so grateful for you all sharing your perspectives. This was so wonderful to get us all in this conversation, and I'm really thankful for you all being a part of this first panel style conversation. And so
before we split up, can we all give you and Chris a big hurrah? Because we all we've got to do is show up. Okay, so that's not hard.
Thank you. I mean, this is my favorite part of the week, so I'm very happy to be here and be able to bring us all together. And so for the breakout rooms, we really want these to feel kind of like intimate conversations. Like, this isn't really a time to like pitch or sell. It's just to like get to know this community more, to reflect on the panel. We have a few kind of rules to be mindful of. Just be mindful of the time. These are going to be about 10 minutes each. So we want everyone in the group to be able to share and get to know each other, reflect on the conversation or whatever you decide you want to talk about. And if you are going to introduce yourself, try to keep it to like a 1 sentence maximum. We want to have kind of like a no introductions rule. This is more of a conversation. And if one person from each group could take notes in a new comment in the MCJ chat, that way we can kind of see what everyone was talking about after. So I am going to split us out, and I'll call us all back in about 10 minutes, and then we're going to do another breakout session. I think it's just really great to try to get to know as many of us in kind of person interaction, even if we can't have the longer conversations right now. I hope that we can follow up after on the Slack. So I'll see you back in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's a point I wish we had talked about more in the panel. So I'm glad you brought it up. Just, yeah, we see a lot of our startups, whether it's SBIR grants or pitch competitions or PRIs, like just not like non-traditional, non-dilutive capital is something that can really set startups apart in this space because they can access that money, whereas maybe, traditional non-impact focused companies can. And I'm curious if you guys, like, what I've been hearing is there's a lot of money like in donor advised funds and stuff that's like allocated for impact. And I'm super curious of like, how do we get more of those dollars actually being spent? And I don't know if that's something anyone on the calls kind of thought about or knows anything about.
I don't know anything about that, but I know that impact is a very broad term, and every fund or anyone who deploys capital defines it very, very differently. So I always wonder, like, what kinds of things are people using to define impact? Are there standards that are kind of coming to play? Things like that.
Yeah, it's something our companies struggle with a lot, is like, what are the metrics they need to be tracking? And what's the standard? And there are some, but I haven't seen anything like rise to the top on that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any standards in that space either. Although I will say, when we're sort of looking at the potential impact of a company, we just try to distill it as close to greenhouse gas emission avoidance as possible. Is this a company that has no impact on GHGs? If they're successful, are they like on a 1 billion ton a year scale? Yeah, it's a pretty coarse metric, I guess, but it's what we try to look at.
And how much do you take kind of co-benefits into account with that?
You mean like if a company themselves aren't offsetting, but they're creating a market or an opportunity for other emissions to be saved?
Or if you have two companies with roughly equal emissions, like do the co-benefits kind of help determine which ones are the most successful in terms of funding?
I mean, co-benefit as environmental benefits outside of carbon?
Sure. Yeah. Environment, gender, stuff like that. Inequality.
Sure. Yeah. I guess when we're looking at that's a really interesting point. Maybe that's a case-by-case basis for us.
I guess one thing that we talked about that I very appreciate that was mentioned were all these alternative funding sources. But I guess, is there ever like a case where it's like a company would be disadvantaged by not going the venture route?
I mean, if they could, venture capital can help kind of win a market quickly, so to scale and grow. So I think definitely if there's two companies in the same space and one happens to be successful in the VC route and can hire a bunch of people and kind of grow quicker.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say, so I'm Adam, by the way, based in the New York area. Been an entrepreneur for a while, two companies, a nonprofit called Pencil Promise, and then a venture-backed company called Mission U that was acquired by WeWork. And so I've been in education, but I want to get into climate next. And so I'm just learning as much as I can right now. But having run a VC-backed company and then advised those who've gone that route and not, I think part of it is just like speed of growth and access to significant capital. One of the challenges, though, is if you don't take VC early on, there's kind of a perception if later on you're trying to raise significant capital against a competitor, that people might kind of ask why. That said, if you have a great business, people are going to want to invest. But there's just a series of expectations that come with venture capital that might not come if you go the route of, let's say, family offices. Which a close friend of mine for a company that I've advised has gone, and it's been great for them because there's been alignment. They've gotten the valuation that they wanted, and they've had access to capital, but they're early at this stage.
Let me just say one more thing on that point. I think venture sure can help you win a market as a company, but especially when talking about climate, it's not just that you're going to win a market, but you're actually going to have an impact on the planet sooner, which I think we need to avoid catastrophe. So I think the funding can really help accelerating the mission as well.
Cool. Thanks, guys. My name is Erica. I also realized I never introduced myself. Been a software engineer for a long time and recently started and closed a company in the fintech space. And Nicole actually introduced my climate journey to me, and I'm hoping to start something in the climate sustainability space next. So
awesome.
Yeah.
That's been one of the coolest parts about MCJ is seeing all these people who haven't been in the space before starting to have a gain an entry point. That's been really cool.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, we're close.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. We're about to do breakout rooms again. Let's see. It's a random.
Wait, we're doing another breakout room?
Yep. It's like speed dating, but for MCJ.
Yeah. I like this.
Okay, let's see if this works.
The whole pandemic thing is so great for introverts. I mean, I would not be able to do this in an in-person setting.
All right, well, I'm Adam Braun. I'm based in the New York area. I was in the Bay Area for a little bit in New York before that, but now back in New York. I've been an education entrepreneur for most of my life and career. So started my career at Bain and then quickly left to start a global NGO called Pencil of Promise. We've now built about 500 schools across the developing world. And then I, after that, brought in a new CEO. It's still running and growing and continues to do great things. And I'm involved as founder, but I want to start a venture-backed company that was called Mission U, focused on higher ed. That was a venture-backed company. First round led our seed, hence Finn and the introduction to Jason. And we pretty early on in our journey got acquired by WeWork in May of 2018. That's what brought me back to New York. If you've read anything in the news, you're familiar with what's happened to WeWork in the last 6 months.
And with New York.
Yeah, exactly.
And with working together.
So it's been quite a year. But I have 3-year-old twins, boy and a girl, and they kind of shape everything in my world. And as you can imagine, WeWork is not going to be pursuing education, which I was brought in to build that pillar of the company in the future. So I'll be leaving WeWork this summer. After winding down the education side, and I'm fully committed to starting something and addressing climate change next. And so been on a bit of a learning journey for the last 3 to 6 months, and I have another 4 to 6 months, just trying to learn as much as I can to figure out what I can be a part of next. And the thing topically that I'm most fascinated and kind of driven by right now is around negative emissions technologies and specifically direct air capture.
Hannah?
We just had a founder on our last little breakout who's building bracelets to do direct air capture with a Kickstarter campaign. That's really awesome. Like, I'm literally in the process of buying one for my wife's birthday right now while I'm on here.
That sounds like Tito.
Tito, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I already introduced myself on the panel, I think, but I will just say, if I can be helpful to anyone ever, let me know. Happy to chat more.
Brent?
Cool. My name is Brent. Currently, I'm a UX designer at Adobe. And yeah, I've been interested in clean tech stuff for a long time, and sort of the time is now to get into the field. And I'm interested in taking a bigger swing at starting a company. So I've been diving into the MCJ community and also joined the Clean Energy Leadership Institute, which, if you're not familiar, is a 6-month program, sort of evening class, grassroots, put together by people from the energy industry. Topic area that I'd probably be most interested in, there's a lot of really great stuff like smart grid and all this that's going to be coming together. Right now, I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the thing that's coming together right now, that still needs a solution built. So learning a lot, diving in. I think a lot of what you said, Adam, resonated about, like, there's that learning period, and sort of when do you take the leap in. So definitely interested in chatting. Anybody interested in entrepreneurial path, etc., or just about Clean Energy Leadership Institute or anything like that?
Cody?
Hey, gang. So I'm Cody. I'm with Techstars. I live out in LA, and been a very generalist early stage investor now for 7 years after having operated in mostly consumer internet companies for 15 years on the product side. And really made the hard decision about 3 or 4 months ago to, not hard, just thought hard about it, to focus heavily on climate change in terms of where I want to direct my investment sort of career and focus going forward. So obviously Hannah is our resident climate change expert at Techstars, and I'm much more sort of a generalist across lots of different industries across the world, and doing what I can just to get as smart as possible. So obviously the MCJ community has been hugely valuable for me, just in meeting lots of folks and diving in and learning. And that's sort of where I am.
And Nicole, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. I'm a little distracted, but I can do that. Also, you're breaking my no introductions rule. This is only introductions. Yeah, my background is I previously co-founded and sold an after-school program to teach kids how to code based in New York. Big fan of Pencils of Promise, Adam. We were reading that when we were founding it, actually. And I, after the acquisition, decided I only wanted to work in climate change, and have spent the past 6 months doing a lot of independent research and catching up. I'm currently working with Erica, who is in MCJ now as well, on figuring out what the next steps are to launch a climate tech startup. And I'm a big community organizer and just have had a lot of fun helping out in random ways.
So while I have everyone, maybe if I may, the one thing I'd like to leave you with is that this event is part of a series that I didn't think up. I didn't, I didn't conceptualize. I haven't done any work on. It was all Nicole and Chris. And the point I think I want to leave everyone with is that there's so much horsepower in the MCJ community, and the MCJ team is super tiny. It's like me and this chief of staff guy, Ty, who's awesome, but he's a consultant I'm paying hourly for a fraction of what he could be billing at, just because he wants to be a part of the community. And there's so much to do and so many cool directions this could go. But the way it gets there is through like everyone picking up a shovel. And so I think the dream is to enable this community to do more and more, but to have us all do it, and not have it be kind of top down and have everyone get fed, but have a community where we're all kind of growing food together. So I don't know what that looks like, but I think Nicole, so she came to me with a Google Doc with this whole long list of things she'd like to do beyond what she's already done. And she was worried that she was going to step on toes. And the message to her is like, have at it. But the message would also be to you guys to have at it. So I just want to leave you with that in case it gets anyone's gears cranking.
Jason, I'm going to have you say that again in 1 minute. So thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
That was so it was good practice. Thank you.
Yeah. Your dry run. That was perfect. I approve.
Should have shaved if I'd known that everyone's going to look at me.
Jason, I'm so curious, in all the interviews in like the 45 seconds that we have, what are like the biggest takeaways from you in the aggregate?
Yeah, so there's been 3 phases to the journey so far. The first phase was, are we fucked? Like, should we even try? The next phase was, we're not fucked, but it's like Vinod Khosla style. Like, there's like 5 things that matter and nothing else matters, right? And now I'm realizing that like it's the global economy is like the rainforest. Like everything is interdependent, and so big things, little things, everything between, it all matters. And so I'm convinced that like, at least right now, and maybe my next phase will be different, but just growing the percentage of people that care and are mobilized in some way is the most important thing, and it doesn't matter how that manifests. Yeah.
That's great.
10 seconds to spare.
Nailed it.
That was nerve-wracking.
I like it.
That was my most exciting 10 seconds of the entire day.
Week, and then we had both breakout sessions today, so that's why I was like the Zoom stalker joke. I was like, how do I keep getting bashed like every single time?
All right. Welcome back, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for coming today. I want to thank Monica and Ramanan and Hannah for being our panelists and for you all being here. And I know Chris wanted to say a little something as well, and we're going to just hear a little something from Jason. He just did a dry run in our breakout room.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, essentially, I just wanted to thank Jason for bringing together all these sort of smart and ambitious people who are working on climate, and to kind of set the stage for his statement to say that at least I am deeply grateful to be able to kind of facilitate sessions like these and meet so many smart and interesting people. So thanks, Jason. Take it away.
Great. Well, so a few things I want to say. One is just that I continue to be blown away every single day by just the caliber of people that are in the MCJ community, and also the spirit of the people that are in the MCJ community. The second thing is just a huge thank you to Chris and Nicole for organizing. But the third thing is that Chris and Nicole, like Nicole just sent me a Google Doc the other day of all these other things she wants to do beyond this event. And I didn't ask her to do this. I didn't have any role in doing it. I didn't put in any work to it. I didn't have any creative input. Like, they just did it. And Nicole's was concerned because she had all these ideas for the MCJ community, but didn't want to step on any toes with me. And my message to her was like, have at it. And if there's one thing I can leave you all with, it's that same message. Have at it. Like, we're all in this together. This is not a top down like MCJ and we do things and you guys just consume what we do. It's like, we is like me and Ty, like who's consulting for a fraction of what he got or what he could be getting if he billed, because he just wants to be part of MCJ. And then it's all of you. So like, we're all in this together. And so if there's ways you think you could make the community better, or projects that you wish that we would do, don't wait for us to do it, just do it. And tell me how I can help you promote it. Tell me how I can help you make it successful. But like, I only have one set of hands and there's so much to be done and there's so much potential with this group. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. All right. Well, we are going to end here officially, but leave the Zoom open for the next 25 minutes. If anyone wants to hang out and just chat, we're here. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you on the Slack. I'm seeing. I am I hit a threshold of facilitating, and when I think I'm done, I'm done. So like, talk about whatever you want.
I'm curious. So I see we have 2 Matts. So Matt Kelner, I think you have the most interesting background I've seen of any Zoom meet in the last quarantine period. Why don't you take it away on whatever you want?
All right. Well, I'm in New Orleans. This is actually my shop where I I convert old gas motorcycles to electric. That's just like a electric city commuter bike that I built a few months ago. But this has been my side hustle for a long time, and I just retired from a 10-year stint investing in super early stage education startups, and so leaning into this particular space with an eye towards battery tech, Second Life, and like that. So thanks. Yeah, it's real. It's not a virtual background.
It really does look like it.
I can sell it. Maybe I'll take some screenshots and,
That's right.
pass it around.
I'm
Oh,
also
that's
a
pretty funny.
previous ed tech person. I used to run an after-school program to teach kids how to code, and it got acquired, and now I'm thinking only about climate change. So I'm hearing other climate.
Yeah, and Eli and Nicole apparently interviewed with my team 5 years ago.
Wait.
I don't remember, but yeah.
Wait. What?
I used to work at 4.0 schools.
That's so funny. Eli was my last co-founder. He's also in this community.
Yeah,
That's
we were
crazy.
chatting. Yeah, we were chatting earlier. It's pretty cool. Nice to meet you again, I guess.
Oh my God, apparently so. I love that.
That's awesome. Small community.
Yeah.
All right. How about the second Matt? What do you want to share with us?
Is that me? I'm the second Matt.
Unless there's a
tied for
phantom
first,
Matt.
Matt. Come
Is there
on.
another Matt?
You're
I think
code
it's
number one,
you.
Matt.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know what I want to share. It's just great connecting with you all. It's been a boring couple weeks, so it's good to some other humans. And here
What interest in MCJ community, like topic space or what you're looking for from the community?
So I'm in the food sector. So that panel was interesting to me. I had actually reached out to Ramanan and Monica, I think is her name, right? And had asked them about their interest in something that I was working on called Mobile Cooks. So we're a vegan cloud kitchen opening in Boston. So I've been trying to raise money from investors, and it's been difficult to try to find the right partners and believers, but it's part of the journey.
That's cool.
Very cool.
I'm
Erin, by the way. Matt, it's nice to connect. I just DM'd you, but this is my lovely watercolor of New Orleans in the background, so I thought you'd appreciate that. I used to live in New Orleans. Right now I'm outside of Chicago. In a former life, I was an attorney at a big firm down there, and then for a startup called Dinner Lab. I don't know if you've come across that, Matt, but anyway, now I have 2 kids outside of Chicago, and I'm doing a total career pivot. I want to be in the climate change space, but I don't want to practice anymore. So trying to figure out what sector I want to be in and what role I want to play. So I'm just trying to learn as much from the MCJ community as I can, and hopefully start a new gig sometime in January is my goal.
I haven't heard of Dinner Lab, but I'm reading about it now. It sounds awesome.
It was really cool before it totally failed. So
yeah.
it was a very awesome concept, but I did a lot of, I was in-house counsel, did a lot of their regulatory work, and it was a company that was just like, okay, we want to do this and we're going to do it. It's completely illegal. And as the lawyer, I'm like, oh my God. So I don't know if I'm going to be in-house at a startup anymore. That ship may have sailed for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of regulation in food, so I can imagine.
Aaron, we can go into more detail later, but Brian Bordanic was a staff member of 4.0 all the way up until Dinner Lab cleared $1 million in revenue. So I know
cool.
Well.
Okay. Yeah.
And God bless you for the hot mess that you had to deal with on a day.
It was so fun and awesome, but just like a little crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know how far along you are, Matt, but I'm curious how cloud kitchens are in the time of shelter at home.
Yeah, so we're not operating right now. I was working on plans to open one, and those have stalled a bit, and I'm still trying to raise money. But things shifted to takeout and delivery, so it kind of fits the model perfectly. I think restaurants right now are trying to think about safety and changing their operation around. So any place that has a big dining room, who knows when the next time people will be sitting in dining rooms at least at the same levels as a couple weeks ago. So some of them are even converting to their own types of cloud kitchens, and they're adding grocery and now able to sell beer and wine delivery. So it's interesting. I think it's having an organic, it's an organic change that's happening in the restaurant industry.
Nicole, how about you? I feel like You got to pick one of the 5 things you're working on right now to tell us about, or tell us about all 5.
So it sounds like you've talked with Eli a little then, but I currently am going through a program called Hacker Fellowship, which is basically this first cohort of something they're trying to be like YC, but we all live together. This was pre-corona, I would describe this idea. We were picked, it's mostly like engineers and engineers who want to be founders or have been founders in the past, coming in pre-idea and co-founding team to find a co-founder and launch a startup in 10 weeks. So I was living in New York, and it was amazing. And I found a co-founder. Her name's Erica. Some of you may have chatted with her already today. She's a total badass. We're working on kind of like the plan is to find an idea that is like aiming towards removing 0.5 gigaton of carbon in the air and using that's software enabled, and most likely B2B, and working within like one of the top 5 energy or top 5 carbon emitters sectors. So we've been doing a lot of just like getting clear on what those questions we're asking ourselves, like those are like main filters right now, and continuing to like test ideas and launch very quickly. So I've launched like 5 different things in the past like 2 months. One of them was a Chrome extension where you can pull all your Ubers and offset all the Ubers you've ever taken, called Uber Neutral, things like that. Just little things that are climate related, but also have been helping me like learn and research more intensely. So yeah, that's a little bit about me right now. And I'm, now have a part-time job of like organizing MCJ things just because I'm obsessed with this community.
Do you have a next project on deck? A next small project like that Uber one?
Right now, no, the next project is not a small project. It is a very large one, and we're trying to figure that out. We're working on like trying to figure out how to make like a Palantir, but for the environment, in some way.
Yeah, that sounds really small.
Totally, just like a weekend thing. Yeah.
Well, Lemonade sounds pretty cool too, but I don't know if we'll have time to hear more about that, but that sounds cool too.
Yeah, I've run this women-led personal development community called Lemonade for like 5 years now, and it's just all lemon puns and all women sharing about things that are a little bit hard to talk about in real life in an anonymous Slack group.
That's cool. Jason, did you say what you're doing?
I don't think I did. So I'm also a Bay Area techie, which is fine. I work at Mozilla on Firefox DevTools, which I enjoy. Increasingly, I've been finding it hard to focus on tech and thinking more and more about climate, which has led me to climate angel investing on AngelList, which I'm always happy to talk about, and ClimateScape, which is an open directory of climate-related projects, both companies with a taxonomy around the major sectors, as well as investors broken up by type, like VC, accelerator, incubator, angel, etc. And yeah, trying to think more about how to level up in the space.
Cool.
Jason, I used ClimateScape the past day, just reaching out to different firms and seeing what matches what I'm doing. So it's been a great resource. Hopefully it pays off this week.
That is awesome to hear. Is there something we can do to help there? I mean, we literally just put together the investor page in the past week. Basically.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great. The only thing I would say is it would add even more value to give like best context. So if you can collect contact info, I know there's a portal that I got a demo of, like PitchBook. Do you ever use PitchBook?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this reminds me of that. The best thing about that is they give you the contact info for like each individual that matches what you're doing. That's like real valuable.
I can give you that. Our underlying Airtable has a bunch of contact information for investors. We just want to go through that to see if that's something that's publicly available or if it came from a spreadsheet that, actually Ramanan's personal contacts. But if you go to the Airtable, you can get that. So I'll send that to you afterwards.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
Yeah. And the underlying Crunchbase data also has some of that too. So we're going to link to that as well. Which is like PitchBook.
I'm loving seeing all the updates on ClimateScape. It's so cool that just, I mean, you guys created it within this Slack group, right?
Yeah, Brandon started it in January in the Slack group because he found that we all had spreadsheets. I had my own spreadsheet. And we've been going from there.
But would you maybe, I'm going to post about this eventually, but one of the other ideas I want to do is like a MCJ climate hackathon. And like just getting together like a group of people who want to like once a month or something spend like a day like coming up with ideas and just building things. Maybe it sounds like maybe you two would want to help me organize that.
We would be happy to get help on ClimateScape, but we also have this amazing database. So we would love to have people who want to use it as well.
Yeah.
Because there are all these different verticals around careers and other ways in which the data could be useful. Fundraising. Ideally, it's like the beginning of an ecosystem.
For sure. I'm imagining like having like 20 people who want to like do a virtual hackathon. And like one of the projects could be like ClimateScape, and then like the other and you could have other people helping out building new features in a day, and then everyone else like coming up with a new idea that they want to work on.
Totally.
And like just building something in like 24 hours and being like, we launched a thing.
That'd be so much fun. Yeah.
I'm in.
Okay, great.
I'm interested as well.
Great.
Yeah, Jason, this thing's awesome. Thanks for building it.
Yeah.
So glad I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I knew you guys have been doing this, and I've been picking companies off from my own like highlight spreadsheet of like my personal like list of very interested companies.
Yes.
So on the heels of your hackathon comment, Nicole, so Aaron and Nicole, we were in the previous rooms, but for the other guys, I'm just starting with a group called Clean Energy Leadership Institute. And it's an evening class program for 6 months that's put together grassroots by different people in the energy industry. And so it's pretty focused on energy. And as part of it, like my deliverable for the class capstone project is, a business pitch to powerhouse VC ventures and actual VCs in the space. And so I need to have a business idea, at least directionally, in exactly a month. So hackathon could be a great way to start diving into some things. And that's why I've been doing my sort of like personal list of what are companies and people in the space that I admire. So I'd be very interested in helping organize that, Nicole.
Whoa. Yeah. What is that class? Can I join? Is it possible? Amazing.
Unfortunately, it's once a year for 6 months, and they've already begun. So unlikely at this point, but I could definitely put you in touch. I'm not sure what the requirements are for late editions. I know they are pretty strict on that, but you never know. But check it out. It's cleanenergyleaders.org is the website.
Okay.
And I would say that the goal of the group is really community building. And so, there is not a group in in New York. It's DC, Chicago, and San Francisco right now. But since we're all like meeting virtually, we're having happy hours and stuff, and I could probably just include you on as a guest sometime. It's a great group of people.
I would love that. That sounds amazing. And I'm happy to like help in any way. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, we could chat after this with whoever's interested around hackathon stuff. I'm definitely trying to focus on this stuff right now.
Great. Okay. I'll make this more of a priority. It's hard. I have, like Jason said, I have a Google Doc that's like a million ideas for this community because I just see it as like the best use of my time to like help facilitate this community to connect with each other. So there's a lot of ideas I have, and I'm gonna see which ones feel like the best use this week.
Totally. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to, I mean, focus is like the number one challenge. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of what other good questions. It's so fun. I mean, the community is so fascinating, and you know, it's been really fun to see just such a wide variety when you're talking such a huge topic, but then also like these sub communities that are forming, and whether it's around, like you guys have a lot around like education and food in this group, you know, somehow like all like quite in common. It's been really cool to see.
One thing you said, Brent, sounded fun. You said you had a couple companies that you've been just starring as interesting.
Yeah.
And
so
working on ClimateScape, I certainly have found companies like, ooh, that's fun. And I'm wondering if other people just have their favorite companies. Do you have a couple?
Yeah, so I have a sort of particular lens that I'm trying to identify companies through. One being primarily software. So you could say either the product is actually a software tool, or two, they're just using software to achieve a separate goal that might be, you know, financing or something else. But I have no skills in hardware. I have no background in hardware. I have no network in hardware. So, you know, if I'm trying to find an actual opportunity, like I should stay where I'm from, at least for now. So that would be the first lens. Second lens then is, you know, something to do with clean energy. And what's really interesting, I don't know what your knowledge level is, but like, and I'm no expert, but this technology is just better. And it also happens to be carbon neutral. And so that really has both things going for it. And so I'm looking for companies that are in energy, software only, that are either like directly working on helping deploy like Aurora Solar, or companies that are, I'm getting nervous because I'm going to run out of time, but we can chat later.
Sorry. 20 seconds, go.
Aurora Solar, the one, Arcadia Power, and Hello Inspire. Those are my current three favorites.